If you thought the Fed was at the top of the food chain, you're wrong. I'm going to show you today why JP Morgan is bigger and badder than what you see with the Federal Reserve. You came here for the truth, so let me unveil that for you. Look, my name is David Quintieri, and I have been digging into the Federal Reserve for well over a decade, and I've been trying to understand all of the intricate layers that is this central bank. And every time I peel one back, I reveal something even more sinister than I thought before. In this video, I'm going to show you two things. The very first is what's been happening with JP Morgan. This bank is growing. I know a lot of people keep their deposits there, the commercial side, so many different things. But recently, with SVB, the bank crisis, and everything else, we've noted that they have grown tremendously. Their power and influence as well. Part two is going to talk about their history. Where did they come from? How, in fact, did they become the Federal Reserve? What am I talking about? Well, we're going to go back to 1907 to learn about that panic of 1907 and understand the formation of the Federal Reserve. If you stick with me through this video, you're going to be more knowledgeable than the vast majority of the public simply by watching this right through. Let's begin with this article right here. I noticed this, and that's what triggered this video. America's biggest bank is everywhere, and it isn't done growing. The deposit crisis that toppled First Republic and two other banks has only made JP Morgan stronger. And this is something that for a lot of people, they don't realize. I've been covering the whole banking crisis right through, and it has been apparent that JP Morgan is front and center, a massive beneficiary of all of this which we have seen. Very interesting stuff, to say the least. Let's begin in this article where I want to talk about many banks calling the US home, but among them, JP Morgan stands alone because since 2018, they've extended their reach into 25 new states and Washington, D.C., with their recent acquisition of First Republic Bank, they've added another 93 branches. They now hold more than 13% of the nation's deposits and 21% of all credit card spending. Can you believe this? It's unbelievable. Look at it. I'm going to show you the chart right here. JP Morgan, total deposits, they have gone off the charts, to say the least. Looking at the next part here, which is their market value. We need to talk about this as well. Because if you can see, look at that blue area. This spring, when the banking system faced a crisis of confidence, JP Morgan was a bastion of stability. They received $50 billion in new deposits and became a beacon for employees from struggling banks. But this strength has raised questions about the balance of power in the US banking system. Do you see? You have one bank that's starting to take more employees from other banks. They're starting to take assets and deposits and growing so fast when they already had such a strong foothold. But look, it gets way deeper than that. You could see it for yourself in this chart right here, comparing what is, all of these other banks. I mean, Bank of America is huge, Wells Fargo, Morgan Stanley, everybody, but JP, much, much bigger. And also, we need to understand that despite this position that they have, they're not done expanding. They're planning to grow in markets and products where they aren't already number one, such as managing customers' wealth. That's what they want to do, and we will see what happens. There's a couple of charts right here, as you can see. Just looking at this, the share of deposits in a selection of metropolitan areas, comparing that. Some areas, like I said, they're not there yet, and they're going to be, okay? That's huge, just to see how far and wide their distribution can be. JP Morgan's expansion in a selection of metropolitan areas, and you can see over that time where they've been growing, okay? Branches upon branches have been opening up. Now, the recent acquisition of First Republic following the banking crisis is a major point. First Republic had lost a staggering $100 billion in deposits in a matter of days. JP Morgan's move to buy First Republic gives them access to a new demographic of wealthy clients, particularly tech entrepreneurs. This acquisition also helps strengthen their wealth management business. And so that's where we are. That's what we're looking at right here and now. And it is important that we get into the next aspect, which is where JP Morgan came from and all of the surroundings that I think are so integral to understanding not just the banking crisis, not just what happens to the stock market, but each and every piece. Let me show you. To truly understand the monumental rise of JP Morgan, we need to delve into its historic roots, starting with the influential role that the company and the man himself, JP Morgan, had in the creation of the Fed. That's where we get to the panic of 1907. It was a massive financial crisis with a run on the banks causing panic among depositors. Does that sound familiar? JP Morgan, the man, stepped in to provide crucial capital and prevent the system from total collapse. So at that point, they didn't have a central bank. And so you literally had this super rich guy saying, all right, no worries, here's some money. That's kind of what happens with a guy like Warren Buffett today, where Bank of America, during that time frame of the financial crisis, all that credit tightened up. Nobody wanted to look at any of these banks. Then you had a guy like Warren Buffett, who's got that cash sitting on the sidelines. He looked at the business, okay, we're good, I'll make you a deal. And that's something like what happened during this time. This event underscored the need for a more flexible monetary system and hence began discussions around reforming the banking and monetary systems, eventually leading to the creation of the Federal Reserve in 1913. And so that's what they would say. That's how they discuss it. We need something better. You can't have just some super rich guy deciding, let's do something else that's gonna be so good for the public, right? Though JP Morgan passed away a few months before the Federal Reserve Act was passed, his actions during the Panic of 1907 influenced the creation of a central bank. Let's take a moment to discuss Jekyll Island. When they met in 1910, there was a secretive gathering that played a key role in the forming of that blueprint of the Federal Reserve System. You might have heard of this. You may have read The Creature from Jekyll Island. If not, in the description, my favorite books. Should be a link there. You can see the video. I talk more about that. I think it's important that we understand this right here and now. 1910, 1913, and then everything beyond that moment. The attendees, including Henry P. Davidson, a senior partner at JP Morgan, represented a significant portion of the world's wealth. You had this group, very small group of people, just a few, a handful, and yet that was literally a large percentage of the wealth in the entire world. At this meeting, in secret, on Jekyll Island, their cooperative effort to create a central banking system was so secretive to prevent suspicions from the public, number one, as well as rival bankers. Do you not sense that they would have something nefarious about this creation of the Fed? That they're meeting in secret, that they don't want anybody to know about it, that it's all the wealthiest people in the world by far, and they have so much control. The guy literally bailed out the banking system a few years prior. And now they're going to set up this new thing. Do you think maybe perhaps that they were doing something sinister? You decide. Paul Warburg, who had connections to the powerful Rothschild family through his own influential banking family, was also present at this meeting. He's often credited as a key architect of the US Fed. Their collective effort resulted in the Federal Reserve Act of 1913, which established the actual Federal Reserve System. And that became such a big event. And right now, for JP Morgan, We're talking about a legacy here from 1907, Panic of 1907, 1910, and then of course 1913, where it was actually enacted. All of this together shows us how interconnected these systems are. JP Morgan's rise as a powerful banking institution, we have to see that this stretches back more than a century, tied into the very establishment of modern US banks. You got the bailouts, the bank crisis, the bailouts of 2008-9, the banking crisis. And all of these events need our focus on those who created the system that we are forced on today. So we can see this very clearly. We've got the Panic of 1907. Rich guy comes in, he bails out the system. 3 years later, him and his buddies, Rothschilds, Representative Rothschild, you got, him, the JP Morgan representative, all these different individuals, super rich, meeting on this island in secret, in the dark of night. They get there. Nobody's allowed to know. They weren't allowed to reference each other. All these different things, so unusual, like something out of a movie that you would think is real silly. They're all going there. They decide this thing. Later, they go back to their respective spots, and that begins the formation. It's not a secret at this point that they want to do this, that they want to create the Fed. They say, you want a more stable system? We got it for you. It's the Federal Reserve. Oh yeah, it's going to have these shareholders. Nobody really knows who they are, but wink, wink, let me tell you. And then you see that crisis after crisis, who stands to gain? Cui bono? It's those in this group of people. The JPs, the Rothschilds, Rockefellers there, everybody. I didn't get into the whole history, and of course I will in future videos. I've done it in past videos. And so you look at the crisis, the bank crisis, right now. A bank fails, JP Morgan swoops in. Oh, we're all good. Oh yeah, sweetheart deals. We'll take care of those, no worries. Do you see what's happening here? And you're going to be out there and you see people pointing to that politician and that politician, or even maybe Jamie Dimon himself. It doesn't matter. These people are interchangeable and replaceable. They are just pawns. They are all just pawns. But this system goes way back, and it goes much deeper than this. Do you see these connections? Do you see how all of these dots connect? It is not the one guy or him or her or whoever. It is the establishment and the way that this system has been set up intentionally to create this where you have a few people on top, just a few people that sit in the shadows, and everybody else. That millionaire down the street, he's nothing. He's nothing. The system is designed to siphon wealth away from him over time so that, slowly but surely, we have only a few people that control everything. Let me know what you think. Don't be afraid to share your opinion in the comments below, and send this to somebody who needs a wake-up call. I'll see you on the next one. Take care.